point here was that, Reaganomics, federal funding for programs on treatment in jails and places like that are being cut all the time. And these people have to provide a certain amount of services to their clients, be it a jail or a halfway house or whatever. They have to provide services by law, and they don't have money by law, because their funds are being cut. And that's a really good thing to push to these people, that we don't cost a penny. And you can put down in your little black book that you send back to your government agencies that, yes, we do have programs for drug addicts, and we fulfill those needs. And it's a real good way to sell us. The two-hatter issue that they talked about, they covered most of it. From my own experience, I make amends to the fellowship. I did an in-service in a jail, which was really neat. I mean, you sit there and talk to a bunch of, a bunch of captains of the jail, a bunch of cops, and here I am talking to them, and they're listening to me, and they're not locking me up, and when I leave, they applaud instead of say, go back to your cell, But, since I also worked in treatment, they had a lot of, well, what do we do when we get an OD? And what do we do when we do, and my ego, of course, I went and discussed all this stuff with them, we're there to talk about Narcotics Anonymous. We're there to talk about recovery. We're not there to talk about, what's the cocaine like on the streets, and I hear there's a shortage of heroin and blah blah blah. Because they think we got the inside scoop on everything, since we're ex-addicts. I love that term. I'm an ex-addict, so I can go shoot heroin socially. So that's, that was one of my problems, and that's one of the things that you might run into. One of the things that was discussed is bringing the H&I meetings back to the groups. Like she said, those groups start the meetings, our group sponsors a meeting and then they leave it, and they say, now the H&I committee will do it. And the idea is that that group is supposed to sponsor that meeting, and they're supposed to go in there, and they're supposed to keep it running, and they're supposed to keep it going with literature, and they're supposed to do all that other stuff. And the H&I committee is just there to answer questions for them. It's just there to, straighten out arguments between different members in your group or something like that. They're not there to run the meetings, because what happens is what happens in Connecticut. You got 4 or 5 people or 10 people on the H&I committee, and they're the only ones that are going in those jails. So you got one person going into jail here in Niantic, you got another person going into jail there. There should be by a group of people going in that jail, 4, 5, 6 different people, and carrying the message, each week, every week. And so the idea is to get those meetings out of the H&I committee and back to the group level where they belong. And the H&I committee should be just that, a committee up here that just helps out in questions and stuff like that. More will be revealed. That last line, we were going to write some more about it. The idea is just like in our recovery, we learn from our mistakes, and we grow, when you do in-services, stuff like that, you're going to find that you're going to walk out and go, oh God, I can't believe I said that to him, or and could you believe that question that guy threw out and I didn't have an answer, or whatever, or the stupid answer I gave him, or or the other one is, God, I wish I had told him about the basic text, or I wish I had told him about the chip system, or I wish I'd, all those wishes, so that by doing it, repeating it, practicing these principles, we don't get them right the first time, we just practice them. By practicing these principles in all our affairs, including service work, we continue to straighten our package up so that, after a while, we learn what works and what doesn't work. Thank you.
All right, come on.
That's my sister.
That's my brother.
It's a good idea to bring a basic text with you. And in one place there was a large circle of staff, and it just passed around the room for about an hour being looked at. And they were quite interested in it. I wanted to talk a little bit about money. We have, in Connecticut, in this structure, we have an H&I treasurer, which was approved some time ago by the fellowship, that the only area service subcommittee that could have a treasurer would be H&I. And And that's worked for us really well too. We have people who are personally interested in H&I going to the groups and asking the groups to take a conscience to pass an H&I can. And in some of the groups, they've given the job of passing an H&I can to a particular person, sort of giving them a commitment to the group, like a coffee maker. And that person goes around and explains what this money is for, trying to keep the basket and the H&I can as separate as possible. And it's proved very successful in keeping the flow of funds for Connecticut, and have quite a bit more money for H&I literature than was ever before. One of the handouts you have is a weekly accounting between the treasurer and the person who's responsible for the H&I can fund. I want Juliet to just come up and talk a little bit about the speaker list, and then we're going to open this meeting up to comment, question, whatever. Okay?
Hi. One other thing is your correctional facilities they will hand you one of these, Volunteers in Corrections. And it's interesting. You'll find a little more out about your institution that you're going into as far as the jails. And some of the hospitals, I think, even have them too. I work at Yale New Haven in substance abuse, and they handed me one. And I found out a little more information on what else that hospital has to offer. So they're good to have. And you also have your hospital and institution handbook, which is something, read it. You never leave it on the shelf. And it'll help you with a lot of the do's and don'ts, things like that. What we did, and we were concerned about, once our H&I had its own treasurer, we were concerned that the money go to H&I. A lot of groups were taking the H&I can and just kind of combining it with the basket. I've heard of that happening in our state, and then they've divided it up. It doesn't happen too often. SWAT team gets in. So what we did, and to keep an accounting of our money in H&I, is we made up a hospital and institution can list, which you all have. And like Peter said, it's one more thing another addict can get involved in their home group and do is pass the H&I can around. And that way that person's also reaching out. We usually give it to somebody with a few months clean time. We try not to give it to a newcomer. But we don't make somebody have to have a year to pass the can. There's other people standing around too. So somebody with a few months. And it helps them to reach out to the other people and let them get to know him. And it's real simple. You fill it out every week with the collector's signature and the treasurer's signature on there. The amount, and what happens is you have an accurate reading, and it's also easier for our treasurer of H&I when he gets all these in to just go over it. And our treasurer keeps a list of what groups donate what. That's something else. And how's it going? What groups do we need to concentrate on and go after, kind of thing. So it helps, and it helps our spirits a little when we see these pieces of paper coming back into our H&I meeting, and they're filled and we see signatures. Another thing we did was a speaker list. We had a problem with not having speakers. A lot of people, they want to speak in an institution, but whatever. I know for me, my pride, my ego wasn't going to tell you I want to come in and speak. And a lot of people, like myself, who do the women's jail, my speakers a lot of times don't show because it's an hour drive every week. And I need somebody close by the jail. I usually find out, 5 minutes before I'm getting ready to get in that car. So what we did was we devised a speaker list. And this way, that if my speaker doesn't show up, all I have to do is run down and find the closest town. For instance, the women's prison is in Niantic. And I find the closest person who's already said they would speak. There's a volunteer thing. And I can call her up and say, can you come speak for me tonight? Because of my communication with the Women's Institute, with the women's jail, I haven't afforded the luxury of being able to just call up and on my word get clearance. Another direct result of keeping my communications open with her all the time is I've built some trust there. What we still do suggest is we have to have clearance forms that have to be sent in for people's, and the jails will approve them. And what we do is I update this list, I volunteered this one, I update this list every 3 months. Unfortunately, people do go back out, and other people aren't aware of it that are in a different part of the state. So we pretty much keep this up to date, and we're constantly adding to it. We found we have to go into meetings, and we ask speakers, and nobody wants to speak, so what we do is we go in and we ask them how many people here have over 6 months clean time, and everybody's egos, everything, their hands shoot up, and we go 1, 2, 3, 10. Great, I got 10 speakers for H&I, and here's a piece of paper, give us your name and number, and your clean time. I do that. We do the clean time, especially because we do have policy with Sept that there's a certain amount of clean time going in. I'm not going to take somebody with 1 month clean to go in and speak at a women's prison. That's my personal opinion. And it was policy set that that's how we feel. Is take somebody in there. It is a scary experience the first time walking in. So it's useful, and you also, all your chairs will have one of these, And if they need a speaker and they haven't been able to think of anybody, they've used all their means. We have people across state that said they're willing to go in, and speak into a hospital or a jail. Again, it works by other, different parts of the state reaching out to each other and getting to know each other. That's helped a lot. Because once your name's on here, I can call you up and ask you. And most people are willing. We keep it updated on what institutions, what we have worked out with the state of Connecticut Corrections, who's just been wonderful, is they've allowed, what we originally started was we wanted to get people fully cleared for all jails. Once you send your paper in, you'd be pre-cleared, and understandably what we did was we won half the battle. They said we could have clearance for 2. If you sent your application in for clearance, you could also put another institution that we have a meeting on, and they give you pre-clearance. So this way, there's more people already pre-cleared, and we can just call them up and, hey, you're foreman, I know you spoke at Niantic, and we need a speaker at Hartford this month, and I see that you're cleared for Hartford. That's another good thing to have when you last minute thing. I've had to go on this list and already have somebody cleared, and I don't have, at 7 o'clock at night, there's nobody there that's going to okay me bringing in a speaker. But that clearance, it's okayed. So this has just really helped us a lot, and has, helped, like I said, helped everybody reach out to thing. One thing else I wanted to say is we have had a problem of mixed messages going in to our institutions. People going, we've had to watch it. And people don't understand it, and they think that, the SWAT team's getting nuts again. We have to stress that we do not engage in any controversies. When the institution is asking us, how do we feel about our sister fellowships, which they have asked, they do ask. I stick to, recovery and Narcotics Anonymous. That's what I know. I don't know about any other recovery. And I don't engage in it. And I refuse to go in there and engage it with them. And that's worked out good. Usually they smile, and it's nice that they see we're not controversy. And I have to watch it with the women at the Niantic Women's. They want their NA meeting, and they want NA speakers up there. And I've had a lot of people that say, well, I want to go in and chair the meeting, I want to go in and chair the meeting. And at times I couldn't make it, and I let them go up there, and the women have complained. They say they want to hear NA recovery. So it's another thing, when your speakers are going in, stress that to them, what message they're carrying in there. It's important. So, okay, that's it.
Thanks, Julia. I'm going to open this meeting up now to anyone that wants to share, ask a question, whatever. Come on up.
Go up?
Sure.
I wanted to ask from here.
All right, I'll have to repeat your question just for the tape.
Oh, okay, then I'll come up. My name is Fern, and I'm an addict from New York. Hi. In New York, we're getting it pretty much together as far as hospitals and institutions is concerned. The first Thursday of every month, we have an H&I meeting where we give in the monies for the individual groups for the cans, and into the treasurer, who of course is there. And we have the chair people for the detoxes in the hospitals there, and all the people that go into the hospitals and institutions in Nassau and Suffolk. We call it SNAS, Suffolk Nassau. And the only problem we're having is getting more people from the meetings involved in H&I. I know that there's, I'm secretary of one of my home group on Saturday night, and I'll announce during the meeting, while I'm announcing the current events, that H&I is an important part. Remember, our primary purpose is to help the suffering addict, and, you know, I'll go through H&I, and we need speakers for hospitals and institutions, and nobody really, I mean, everybody puts the money into the can, but nobody really comes up and volunteers, and that was a very good idea about, you know, saying who has over 6 months, and say, well, we're going to pass this sheet of paper around, you know, could you sign it if you can? And, but we don't really know how to get, you know, a lot of more people involved. We also have an H&I workshop the third Thursday of every month, where we ask anybody, as we do, ask them to come to the H&I meeting. We ask them to please come to the workshop to get involved, and not that many people are coming. One thing we had thought of was having a people raiser, like you'd have a fundraiser, just to try not to get money, just to try to get people to get involved in H&I. And that just came up last month at the workshop. So we have people that will try to get it off the ground, but nothing's been said. I'll find out next H&I workshop, you know, how that's progressing. But so far that's just still up in the air. So I thought maybe somebody would have some comments. One comment was the list, to pass the list around. That was very good. I thought maybe you'd have some other comments on how to get the people from the rooms to speak at H&I, because everybody wants to open their mouth at a meeting, but I don't think that many people actually want to put the effort into driving, you know. And one good thing we say when we pass the can around is that these people are in pajamas, and they can't, go to a meeting, you know, and they have no idea, you know, how to recover when they get out, and that this is for literature. And we have a pretty substantial amount of money for literature in Suffolk now, so we have no problem with it. The money part, just the people, you know, getting the people into the meetings. So thanks.
Thanks, Fern. One of the things that I started doing when I chair a meeting, I ask for a show of hands of people that have been in institutions, kind of using a guilt trip. You know, yeah. Another thing that we did recently, we started making out flyers. H&I needs your support, and with announcements at some of the meetings that really need outside support, and that seems to be working a little bit, you know. So as long as we have to keep making flyers, and you know, because people, so you know, I even forget sometimes to announce that H&I really needs support desperately, you know. So if you have a flyer in with all the other announcements, you can be sure that it's going to be read. That's worked. I don't know if Julie has anything else.
As a matter of fact, I had written to California, was asking them this question. You know, we search for everything. We just keep trying new and different things. This is my own personal observation. I've noticed with sponsorship, if I watch somebody that's sponsoring, if the sponsor picks up ashtrays and is active in the fellowship, usually their baby is too. And that's kind of, we're kind of growing a new generation with our H&I people. The people that are on H&I, the people they sponsor, we don't necessarily let them, you know, as far as I do, I don't let my baby get active right now on that scale of chairing a meeting. But I'm constantly talking to her, you know, and the newcomer, and letting them know. And like Karen says, you know, once again, we hit their egos. We raise, you know, ask how many people, even before you mention H&I, ask how many people in this room have been in an institution, hospital and institution, you know, and again, all the hands go up. And then say, you know, we really desperately need you to go back in and carry the message back in from where you came. And that's how, it's hard, you know, and what California wrote back is just keep doing what you're doing, and it'll get better, was my answer. But that's how we just constantly keep talking to people. I went in Florida, we talked, I went to the H&I workshop, and they suggested make it a little more attractive in a way, you know. We tend in H&I to get real, right, we tend to get real in our meetings crazy and real stern, and we've had to learn to lighten up a little. You know, another thing is taking somebody in not necessarily to speak, But once they have enough clean time to at least go in, take them in. As soon as they have enough clean time, whatever, I don't know what your policies are set in New York, but take them in to sit, and just share in the meeting as one of their other meetings to get that fear. We've come about that, and especially Joanne and I, who chair the women's meeting, is women were scared to go into the prison. That was the reason why they wouldn't speak. And what we did was we said, well, hey, why don't you just come in and sit, and bring another speaker in, because usually they'll let you bring in more than one person in most institutions and hospitals. And let them get a little more comfortable, and usually what we end up doing is they get addicted to H&I, and they're willing to come in. That's what we just started doing. The ANIC was keeping a list of who came in, who was speaking, and what was, a lot of times I've had to take tapes in because I have no speakers. We've had book meetings. We take the recovery text in, we have staff meetings. We ask the girls. In our institutions, the majority of our institutions, the inmates chair their own meetings. And we've had inmates that are clean a year and still in the institution that will speak in the institution. That's another way to do it. There are other ways to get people in there and get people active in it. But a lot of it we found was just getting the fear, of going in. And a lot of reassurance, and it's going to be okay. Usually if I take a speaker, I'll take them out to dinner first, say, let's get together for dinner. And then I know I got one more speaker, that Karen can take into a hospital or something, or I get one from Karen. So that's how we do it.
We by no means have all the answers. Anyone that wants to answer or contribute, please come up over here.
Okay, let's answer from here, all right? Right, not to get into any kind of a controversy or nothing, but I'm having a problem with one institution where it's like compete. Like one night that we have our meeting, they're playing Father Martin movies, his films and stuff, and like the people have a choice. They're staying in the room or in the complex itself, or else walk across the street into a barn, into a meeting. Is there any way possible I can say something to them and say, hey?
Again, that's your communication, your line of communication. We had the problem with, again, the women's jail meeting. It is on a Thursday night, and the New Haven home group is a Thursday night. Everybody wants to go to their home group and, socialize and this and that, and a few of us give up our home group as a result of that. And what we did, again, because we have good communications, we keep in contact, is when we went in last month, we had to have a meeting about what were we going to do, and that's exactly what we did in H&I about this. We used H&I for what it was for. And the suggestion was, let's change the night. And we didn't know if they were going to go for it, but we went in, and it turned out that it was even better that we changed it to Sunday nights because the girls have socials too on Saturday nights. Last week I was there, I had one girl when there's a social. So a lot of times we have to take a look at what's going on in that institution and switch the night. We tried not to get a group to sponsor, we made up some guidelines for what does it mean when you sponsor a meeting to take to the groups, RH&I. Explain to these groups, what are you getting yourselves into when you're going to take this commitment on? And one of the suggestions was don't have it on your home night. Try to avoid that. So it's mainly going in and explaining to them, talking to them, and is there another alternative? We stay away from we want you to and you should to, how can we work this out? Is there something we really want to see more girls come in or guys?
We're going to have to get people to come to the microphone so we'll get it on the tape. One thing that has worked in one particular institution about that problem was just mentioned is this particular institution was sending the alcoholics to one fellowship and the addicts, quote unquote, to another fellowship and separating them out. And today, through communication with that institution, everybody in this treatment center goes to the NA program, and everybody goes to the other fellowship. And the hidden addict sometimes going in as an alcoholic and not even realizing or admitting. So I have a hand over here. Hello? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Bob, and I'm an addict. I'm from New York also, and in news today. A couple of things I'd like to say before I start is that hi to Juliet. I sent the hello to Juliet a few times. I didn't realize it was Juliet. I was calling her Julie, and I had a resentment because she never answered me. Hi, Juliet. Also, I was really I was saddened to hear about Danny. I'm glad to hear that he's doing well, and I hope he hears this tape, and I send my love to him. He's one of my more favorite people in H&I. You're all my favorite people, really. I'm an addict. I don't think I've ever said in a room I'm a grateful addict. I am grateful to be a member and proud to be a member of H&I. You know, that's a fact. When I first came around and they used to talk about H&I or get an H&I speaker in a room, I didn't want to hear about that, you know, please, later, after the meeting, I don't want to hear about that now. Today I see things differently. You know, my first involvement came through childbirth with H&I, believe it or not. My sponsor and his wife were having a child at the time. He couldn't share his meeting, and he asked me to take it for 1 week. And that was over a year ago. And I guess you know how a lot of that goes, you know, can you just come down, you get dope fiend into a meeting, and before you know it, you're in love with what you're doing. At least that's how it went for me. I'm glad that they put that up on the board. I hadn't seen that since Pittsburgh last year about the division, the service for H&I, the service structure, because we are growing in our area, and it's really beautiful, and it's working for us. And I can see that you know, what we needed in the beginning was just a working area service committee, and now we're to the point where we do have the workshops like Fern was sharing. And in those workshops, I'm starting to see the need because we are getting a good turnout. It's not great, but it is progressive. Every time we have a meeting, there's a couple more addicts coming in. And I can see the need now to separate a detox chair and a prison chair because there's just so much stuff going on and so much input that we have for each other and what we're doing that sometimes we can get lost. And I was glad to see that this weekend. I had an experience in my meeting. Maybe you can, if you ever rewrite or do that, some input for chairing a hospital meeting or for doing an in-service. I had an experience in the meeting I chair. I chair a meeting in a rehab on Long Island, and right in the middle of the meeting, a patient had a grand mal seizure. Right in the middle of the meeting, and it was like, you know, I looked to the recovery text, but there was no answer there from me, and I was kind of at a loss because I didn't even know that there was a phone in the room, okay? And even though if I did know, I didn't know what number to dial. I didn't know where a nurse or some medical assistance was there pronto, you know? And we brought that up in a couple of our service and our area meetings. And so today I know if something like that was to happen in the room, I mean, it's like maybe a 1 in 1,000 shot. But I tell you, I was really upset. He's okay today, by the way. Yeah, he's really okay. You know, I'm really grateful in our area, H&I, it's growing, and there's one of the guys, he's not here, our area H&I chairperson, that's a fellow by the name of Richie. And, you know, I'm sorry he's not here. Although there's some, you know, the literature that was handed out at that table is real valuable. I'm going to get it back to him. But he helped me out. I was chairing that meeting last year, and they had an idea, you know, to get an area service committee for H&I going, and maybe get this thing organized. And he, you know, got me to come down. I didn't want to come down, and then next thing you know, now I'm treasurer. You know, I guess that's how it works. And I didn't want it. You know, they handed me this big checkbook and all of this stuff, and said you got to do this and do that. Really, they didn't tell me how to do anything. But it sort of got to be fun, you know. We had a problem in our area, in my meeting, and a couple of, you know, my meeting. You see that? That's love, man. Restricted meetings in the hospitals with people from the outside coming in. When the meeting was first turned over to myself, we had a lot of people from the outside groups coming into the meeting, and it was we had a lot of difficulty with that. And And today, that's been, corrected. We got some input, from other states and how it works better. And today we're doing okay. Getting people involved, it's slow, but it's working. It's working. Because, I look around my area, I look around here, and the people who are involved in H&I, they're okay. They got a smile on their face. Somebody who's making that weekly commitment to go to a jail or a detox or a hospital, it feels good. It reminds me not only of where I came from, but it tells me what I got today, which I can forget so easily sometimes. I had some experiences with mixed messages, like I heard mentioned before, and about up to 4 months ago, we voted in the area that each meeting ought to have 2 chair people. So now I have a co-chairperson, and I thank God for that, because it was coming to the point where it was a one-addict show, and I knew it. And I knew it, and I thank God for the open-mindedness when they brought that up at the area meeting, and today it's much better. And that's where that mixed message came in. One week, my co-chairperson couldn't be there, and he said, well, I'll send a speaker down, and there was a girl there, and I went up to her. I had never met her before, and so I asked her, I said, what's your home group? And she said, well, I've been to this group, I've been there. And I said, that sounds like a one-shot deal. And she said, yeah. I said, well, the idea here is to share your experience, strength, and hope and recovery in Narcotics Anonymous. And how you're going to do that with one meeting, I don't know, but you're on in 5 minutes, But I learned through that, rather than stand in rigid defiance and say, you can't do this, that one particular meeting, I had to sit back and maybe find out why. And I saw why. And it was okay, There was some identification. She didn't destroy the meeting. However, I would not let that happen again. And I feel good today. Today I'm learning to allow things to be wrong sometime in order to learn. Because we stood in our area a lot of times, we stood in rigid defiance. And we didn't get anywhere today, and the growth we got from that today is phenomenal. I don't have much more to say. I am very, very grateful because for me, being in that meeting a little bit over a year now, seeing people come back, seeing at the looks on people's faces when they come back, and they're like looking at me and I start to feel like a doorknob, like it's set there 10 years ago and you're always there. And it's kind of a good feeling. It reminds me of a commitment that I got, and it's real neat. I've been lucky enough to be in the hospital and have somebody walk in that door that I used to be out in the street with, and look at me and feel safe because he sees a familiar face, or she sees a familiar face. And I've gotten a lot out of it. I really, really have. I don't know, I'm just really, really grateful to be part of H&I, and really, really grateful to be part of it in my area, and that it's growing. And I'm grateful, I always had a dream when I was out there using. I don't know where this dream comes from, I don't know, but I always could tell you how to recover. While I had an armful of narcotics, I could always tell you how to get clean. And for some reason, there was just something inside of me that told me I could get a lot out of that if I could be there for a dope fiend that was hurting. And today, being in the hospital in that situation, I realized that one little dream of mine is being fulfilled, and it's real nice, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
This girl back here, first row.
My name is Anne Marie. I'm a drug addict from Marietta, Georgia.
Hi.
I had a question that maybe y'all can answer. We're starting a new meeting in a jail in Atlanta, and we got this thing with the clearance. I'm not exactly sure. Anybody that goes to the meeting, the warden says, has to be cleared through their clearance system. We have a sponsor for the meeting, so that's one person, but he said I don't know exactly how we're going to run the meeting, whether we should have a discussion meeting or have a speakers meeting. It would be nice if we could have a speakers meeting, but the thing with the clearance, how would you get around that? Every time somebody speaks, you have to get them cleared, and how long is that going to take in order to get somebody cleared? If you have a discussion meeting, my experience with that, in hospitals and institutions, a couple things happen. One, it turns into group therapy, and all this crosstalk, and what I hear you saying is, and you're in control of your treatment, and on. Or war stories start. You shot 60s, I shot 8, and that's not real recovery-oriented either. So I don't know exactly what, if anybody has some experience with going into jails and getting around this clearance system. The warden told us that they would clear someone even if they had a record in the past, as long as it was not for drug dealing. So that's one thing. Not that any dope fiends ever dealt drugs. No, we didn't do that. So I'd appreciate that. Also, I just want to say something that we had a real neat thing that happened just a little while ago. We had a H&I fundraiser, and we raised over $1,000 for H&I for Atlanta, and we had a dance. It was great. So, thanks.
Okay, again, it goes back to your lines of communication. When we first started with the women's prison, you needed the clearance. What I do, because Danny and I work so close with the head of volunteers for the correctional department, there is a head of the volunteers in, I think, any state, I'm pretty sure, is what he does is he sends me about a package a month, every 2 months of clearance forms. And I take them to the meetings, like the problem I have with getting women up there to the women's prison. I'm trying to see what I can do. The New Haven group sponsors the women's meeting, but we just started a women's group, and I'm trying to see if the women's group will take over the sponsorship of it and get more active another way, And what I did was I took the clearance forms in there. What I do is I try and get people pre-cleared, even though I got a little clout, I can call up and, they'll okie-dokie it. They asked us to do it this way. So I just keep them with me in the car in any meeting I go into, and I ask people how much clean time they have, or they don't. In our state, if you're on probation or parole, you can't get in. And you also have to have not been in that institution for a year to go in and speak. So what we do is we take the clearance forms around, and it's a little work, it's a little extra work for us. But, again, I get, it's 10 more minutes I'm spending with another woman talking to her, which helps me. So we do that, and this is one of the reasons we have the pre-clearance. We have the speaker list. And so we keep it going. We're almost ahead of this game. We're getting close, and it's been over a year since we started the speaker list with the pre-clearing. With your communications, go back and ask them, is it possible we can get them cleared for 2 institutions? Another one, besides the one we're asking you to clear them for now. Can you work out something like that? We went and asked them for all of it. Can we have full clearance? Knowing they weren't going to give us full clearance, but they gave us, at least half of it, 2 jail clearances. So that's where it's a little work, with the clearance forms. But after a while, like what happened to us, eventually, hopefully, it will get to the point where you can just pick up the phone and call in and say, this is who I'm bringing in tomorrow. I try and call a day or so in advance. And that's what happened. It got to that point. But I still have the women sign the papers, even though they okayed it. I still have the women that are coming to speak, or the men, I take men to speak, make out a clearance form and leave it right there with them. It takes us 2 weeks for clearance. So, hope that helps.
John. Hello, I am John. I am an addict. I'm recovering in New York City. It's good to be here. We're opening a jail meeting, and we're going for a presentation next Thursday. It's the only jail in the lower 14 counties that I didn't spend any time in, so it's good for me to go there. Danny, I love you. I miss you. I miss your hat bobbing around. I knew you weren't going to be here. I keep looking for your hat. I don't have a question. I got something that's bothering me, and it might be more appropriate at a meeting that I share this, but here's where I am. When we go before the public information or hospitals and institutions, it's different than when we make an ass out of ourselves at a meeting. You know, that's allowed. But it has a different effect when we do it before the general public. They don't know what we're about. What happened down home, a speaker was brought to a detox, and he traded phone numbers with a girl in the detox, and they went on a date when she had a pass. This is a killer. It's something. I'm not putting it on the individual, but it might be something we should talk to our speakers about. Also, I wouldn't invite a guy to jail to speak if he's got any active warrants. That would be inappropriate. Thank you.
Somewhere, I don't know if it's in this, the H&I handbook, there's a list of do's and don'ts for anyone going into an institution. And did they incorporate it into here? I think they did. And it mentions things of that nature. Lonnie.
My name's Lonnie. I'm an addict. I was real sorry to hear about Danny, too. I hope he's getting better. If you're listening, Danny, I love you, and get a haircut. One thing I think that Juliet and Karen, right? Karen, touched on is the communications. Things in H&I seem to move real slow. At least they did in the Ohio region, especially in my area. And I think that that's probably my higher power working there. Not rushing things. One thing we did in one institution, and it took a lot of different meetings, you know, with this particular institution to finally get a meeting going there. We set up a steering committee, and it was a steering committee of NA members, and they also had a steering committee of inmates. And what happened is, through a lot of initial contact and meeting with the administrators and all those psychiatrists and the psychologists that hang around those places, we finally got a meeting with the administration. We had about 8 different people on this steering committee of NA members. We had the meeting with them, and then we went away for a while. Kept in contact. They formed a steering committee of the inmates, and they had a few meetings too. It was sort of like, you know, when you were talking about in-service, it brought to mind that, in a way. And then the time came when we were invited back to the institution to meet with the administrators and the inmate steering committee. And we sat around, we drank coffee, and we talked about what NA was and a little bit about us and what they wanted, you know. You don't go into institutions and say, this is what we're going to do, this is what you should do, or anything else. You say, we're here. What we did, we told them we're here to carry a message of recovery, and what do we need to do? You know, how do we need to dress? Exactly, you know, all those different things that crop up, the problems that crop up naturally when you're going into an institution. I think a lot of those were alleviated by taking it real slow, and keeping that line of communication open. And the steering committee seemed to work real well. You know, we didn't know what type of meeting we wanted to have at that point. We didn't know how many people they were allowed to come to the meeting. It ended up approximately about 50 inmates, you know, and there's a waiting list of 200 or 300 waiting to get in the meeting. You know, and they said, well, how many do you want to come? And we said, no way. You know, and they even asked us, we got this list with different offenses that these people had, and could you help us choose? And we said, no way. You know, that's on you. You know, we're just here to carry the message, and that's it. You're going to have to determine who gets to come and who doesn't. We can't make that choice. And what happened was, through the steering committee, we started having speaker meetings just to get them familiar with and qualified, and we're coming in, and we're dope fiends, and we know what it is to be in a jail, and now we know what it is to recover, and keeping it real simple. As time went on, we were able to break up into like 4 different discussion meetings. And yeah, they do get off on a lot of weird stuff sometimes, about treatment stuff and all that. And by being there and by having that communications open, chairing different discussion groups, you can shut that down, and get it back on the track. And after all, that's the responsibility of any chairperson to maintain that spirit of recovery. What happens is, about every, I think it's 3 months it's supposed to be, they're supposed to have another steering committee meeting. And, after that 3 months, the meeting's been going on and everything else, and now the inmates get back together and we get back together and we say, okay, how's it going? And they've got, well, this is not right, and there's been talk about this, and how can we work these things out? Again, the spirit of communication, keeping those channels open to the needs, of that institution, whether it be a prison or a hospital. I don't know, I was able to participate in this particular institution meeting for about a year. It's when I wasn't working, and my higher power saw it fit for me to get a full-time job, and I had to back off. However, we're back in another prison in Ohio, but only on a monthly basis, because that's the only thing that we can do. And to show the contrast between the one meeting where we had the steering committees on both sides and everything was working out and we were getting together and we were talking about things and things go real well there, and to contrast with the institution I'm in now, that we meet once a month, they won't have any steering committees. They won't even talk about it. The other institution, you weren't supposed to wear blues because they told us don't wear blue because the inmates wear blue. Fine. We show up in white pants at this other one, and there was no communication there, and they're saying, okay, the guys in the kitchen wear white pants. What the hell are you going to do? And it shows, where that communication is just real important. And I think taking it real slow, and having a lot of faith in our higher power, I think that's where it's at, and carrying that simple message. Thanks.
My name is Sharon. I'm an addict. Hi, everybody. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I have a real simple question. Maybe somebody's had some experience with it. I am the outside sponsor of a H&I meeting in a hospital. The meeting is real good. We get a lot of outside support. And in the Atlanta area, when somebody celebrates a birthday, their home group buys them a cake and a chip with their name and last initial and clean time date engraved on it. Well, I have a guy in this meeting. He's from the outside, but he wants to make this H&I meeting his home group, and he wants to celebrate his birthday. And what I want to know is it appropriate to use H&I money for something like that, to buy his chip and his cake? Since I see a lot of people shaking their heads no. I don't know. I brought it up before our H&I committee, and we had no experience in this. Okay, I think my question's being answered. Thanks.
I believe H&I money is primarily for the getting and using and finding ways and means to get more literature, correct? Nothing else. Anyone else? Come on. Oh!
Over here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Maynard. I'm an addict. And one of the things that the lady was talking about was some of the problems that we had in a few of the meetings is that we're not a group, and we don't go by all the traditions, because sometimes the institution, they have guidelines too, like at one of the adolescent, what do they call it, industrial school, they say that if they have these 3 things that they wanted us to do, and that was to let them know if anyone was talking about killing themselves, killing anyone else, or taking off. And they wouldn't let us in unless we told them if any of those 3 things happened. and we had to agree to it, otherwise they weren't going to let us in there. And we made that decision in a H&I committee, and for one thing, Kansas is kind of spread out, our areas are kind of spread out. We don't have a statewide structure system like that. And so somewhere along the line, some of the traditions are either, they're just not taken care of, like in regular meetings on the outside, you'd say. And we'll go in there, we'll explain this to these guys, these young guys, or in the treatment centers. And a lot of times in the hospital and treatment centers, we get a lot of outside support because they have rooms, especially for the meetings that come in. And a lot of the outside support comes in, and there's these little problems. But we have a meeting, and recovery is there. But we have those problems with the traditions, and we can't get a lot of people in. We can only get one in, or maybe two, and that's it. And I think it's important that two people go, because two people complement each other. At least that's the way it's been for me and this other dude at times. There was something else that y'all suggested and I never thought of, or we hadn't thought of, and that was the group sponsoring H&I meetings. And where do we get the money for coffee? Because we can't, the institutions will not allow us to pass money. We can't seventh tradition a H&I meeting that's not a group. And if we don't follow traditions, we're not a group. Or, a group survival is a gift from God if you follow the traditions. And then we have an H&I meeting, and we don't call it groups. And I'm not sure. I hear y'all talking about the H&I meetings being groups, and I didn't think that was possible. Because how do you? I just don't feel appropriate going in and asking the people in the institutions for money. And there's no way to support a meeting, and we don't have that much money in Topeka in the H&I funds, and the cans don't seem to work. I mean, that's all there is to it. The cans don't seem to work. We rattle them and there's a nickel, and that's kind of a drag. But we have these fundraisers that work out every once in a while, and they always seem to work better than anyone ever plans them. So those work out. God does take care of a lot of things for us. I heard a lot about some fellow named Danny, and it's my hope that wherever he's at, that God's in his life no matter what happens, and it's evident that a lot of people love the man, and it's my prayers too. There was one other thing that we have a problem, and that's in we get a lot of people that come to the open detox meetings. They're all open just about in our treatment centers in Topeka, and we get all these people that come, and we don't have the money to give out the birthday buttons or the birthday chips, and so we end up not giving anything at all. And in some of the institutions, just as in the guidelines and stuff, they said don't give them keychains because they don't have enough keys to anything, and they want something and we have nothing to give them, and I'm not sure what to do about it, and we're running way out of literature. In order to keep all the meetings that we have, we need a lot more money than we've ever gotten. And that's just a continual struggle, I guess, for everyone, I believe. And there's some places, like this cat was, these other people were saying that we have different people that may be appropriate for different places, like I personally do not go to a place called the Menninger Foundation to carry a message because a lot of the people there would not see me as somebody, and that's a judgment on my outside appearance, and I heard some other people talking about outside appearances too, and that those all have real good reasons and everything, but for a long time I was fucked up and I had short hair, and that's all there was to it, in my life and some of the things that I believe in and some of the things that the places I come from, my appearance on the outside makes no difference on what's on the inside to me, and I feel myself, I'm able to go anywhere just like I come here, but there are some places that people still see me as an external person and not internal. And anyways, I'm glad to see you all and see that there's other people in H&I around the country. You know, sometimes it gets real, I don't want to say lonely, but it does once in a while, you know. It gets real lonely. But anyway, I'm glad to be here. Thanks a lot.
The nature of an H&I meeting, my understanding of it is that the nature of an H&I meeting breaks traditions. Graphically, it breaks number 3. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. And number 7, certainly not going to pass a can in a prison or a hospital. And I think the reason for an H&I committee is to go in and to work those things out, something that Lonnie was addressing. You know, can we carry the Narcotics Anonymous message into this meeting? What are your rules? And what are our needs? And are your rules so strict that we're not going to be able to bring NA in there? Or can we work it out? And that's what the H&I committee is for. Again, that's what Lonnie was talking about. As far as giving something to someone in a meeting, I think a white book is the best possible thing to give to someone. Just about any institution, you can bring something back to wherever you live and read it. The H&I cans, we've, again, we use Juliet's term, dope fiend. We've put the can into somebody's hand and said, go around and explain what it's for and explain the need for it. And we have found that the can does not work too well when left sitting on a table. But when you have someone who's committed to carrying that can around and explaining it, why it's, you know, and reminding people where did they get the message, because a lot of us got the message in institutions, then that can seems to fill up with money. It's been really successful when it gets into the hands of one energetic individual drug addict. Yeah, so that's my advice to you. As far as I agree with everything you said about appearances, and that's what NA is all about. You know, my content of my character, rather than the way I look. But like it or not, the reality is that we go into an institution, we sit down with a warden of a prison, sit down with the head of a hospital, group of psychiatrists, and we represent Narcotics Anonymous. I know no one represents Narcotics Anonymous, but in their eyes, we are representing Narcotics Anonymous. And, you know, like I said, I think it works to have one guy in a Brooks Brothers suit, another guy, you know, who's got long hair. That works real well because, you know, they see the whole range. But the reality is that we've got to bend to some of their rules if we want to get Narcotics Anonymous into that institution. And we're willing to go to any lengths. And like Lonnie said, Danny still won't cut his hair, but it seems to work. Anyway, Julie, you wanted to respond?
To your questions, a lot of questions, you know, about having a birthday cake or something, you know, a little token of something. And again, we ran across that with the women's jail meeting, and even with the men's meeting. And what we did was, because again, I have good communication, when a girl there, she got a year, they let me bring in a cake, you know, carried in, a few of us chipped together in the fellowship and got a cake for this woman, and, you know, let us bring some soda, and that's a big thing, you know, everybody knows that. And another thing Joanne does, the other girl that chairs the meeting, and she makes little bookmarkers, you know, with just for today, NA slogans on it, and takes them in, and it doesn't cost anything, and and it meant a lot to the girls, you know, or bumper stickers or something, you know, if anybody has any extras, you know, sometimes they'll let us take that in, or poster. We have an original poster from Connecticut, an NA poster that we're trying to get copied to take in. Little things, it doesn't always have to, we found out that it's the little things, you know, just a card, send a card around a group, an outside group, and take it into the institution for the person. And that, you know, that means a lot. You know, I don't know, it does get lonely. I just wanted to say one more thing about it. Yeah, it gets lonely. It's hard, and sometimes, you know, Danny and I and Peter and Karen and the other people in the H&I, you know, we feel like, is this it? You know, is it going to stay like that? And I had an experience at Yale where the girl that got a year clean time in Niantic, I was sitting on Yale campus in the women's meeting, she walked in and sat down next to me. You know, and a month before that I was screaming and yelling and ready to quit. And her, you know, just really feeling sad about this, the whole state of H&I. And that made it all worth it. Nobody can take that experience from me. And the only way you can get that experience is if you get into H&I. Because you're not going to get it just coming to meetings. You know, so it's things like that, and they do happen, you know, and people kept telling me it'll happen. You'll see somebody walk in, and that's what makes it worth it, you know. So I don't know. That, to me, just has been keeping me going from there, that one experience. So sometimes we do ask the institutions, can they buy literature? Before we go offering them literature, we ask them, do they have a kitty? A lot of institutions have money allotted to them for literature, which I found out about. And we ask them first, do you have a budget for literature? And a lot of them do, and a lot of them can buy their own literature. So that's another way to handle that, you know. So that's what we do. And I want to say hi to Danny. I love you, hippie.
Come on up.
Hi, my name's Nancy and I'm an addict. Welcome to Chicago. As you know, Chicago's been small and we're building up really good. Our H&I is going through a lot of trial and error, but most of the hospitals and institutions that we deal with, I specifically deal with a crossroads intervention. And what that is like task. You know, they got a choice, either jail or this treatment center. Now, I do a 7th tradition there. We do it on Monday and Tuesday nights. And the reason why we do that is when I have 5 or 6 people or more outsiders, I'll take a 7th. And I'll sit there and I'll explain what the 7th tradition is. And I'll tell them it's to buy coffee and to buy literature and, you know, just to really donate to H&I. And I have found that patients in a hospital and even a treatment center, like they're only allowed maybe 50 cents a day, they're willing to give for their recovery just to have this literature. Our jails, mostly I know a person that dealt directly with Cook County Jail. Now, he's been around for 3 years, and what he does is, the only people he will ask are those that he knows has been around for a while, so that he does know that a message of recovery is going to be stated. He's got very good working relationship with clearance. He only has to give them 2 days notice. Now the new person chairing it, the meeting there, was one of those that was constantly going there. See, everything we're doing now is trial and error, you know, and it is hard for us to get speakers. Me, what I do is I'll call up somebody that I have seen at a meeting 4 or 5 times in a week, or, you know, one of the people around my house that I'm close to. I just made up flyers too that says, H&I needs you, and about that we need speakers, people to drive patients to meetings and to go into hospitals on 1-on-1. They're just allowing us to do that in certain hospitals. And on the bottom I says, remember when you were in treatment. Because I believe in Chicago at least 90% of the people have been in a hospital or institution. And 50% never even heard of NA. And they were upset about that, you know. So it kind of works out good that way. But we're going through trial and error here. So far, it's small, but it's getting there on H&I.
We're out of time. There's one thing up here. We have a letter of reference written by the State Department of Corrections, and we have 200 copies of this letter of reference sitting at home in Connecticut, thanks to me. And it's...
Is that an amendment?
Well, I'm not sure. It's one of the steps somewhere. So if this, it's a to whom it may concern letter for the express purpose of people like you who are active in H&I to give to departments of correction or to an institution, wherever. So if you're interested in getting a copy of that letter, put your name and address on here, and I will send you a copy. Okay? I have quite a few copies. So can we end out here in the usual manner? Thank you.